take one little suitcase and you go into a place with a lot of other kids where you don't know anybody, but you'll be safe. And we will try and meet you later. And my sister and I were signed up to go to Palestine, which at the time was Palestine, not today's the state of Israel. And at the last minute, my mother said, "Oh, I won't let you go because I'm afraid I'll never see you again." And you know something? She was right. Because most of these children, the largest percentage of these children never ever saw their parents again. Because the parents couldn't get out of around Europe. And the children were out in some other country, and so they never saw them again. I have a cousin who went to Israel, to Palestine at the time. And I said to him, when I met him 50 years later, I said to him, how did it feel when you were alone with your parents, and without your parents and your sister? How did it feel? He said, well, I did the best I could, but sometimes I just leaned against the wall and I cried. And I was so sad. And he was still looking for his parents, even though he knew perfectly well they had been killed. You know, even without proof, he knew that they were gone, and the sister too. So my sister and I never went, and in the meantime, my parents tried to get us out of Germany. And there was, the story went around that there was only one place where you could go to that was, didn't ask for all these papers, passport and visas and the affidavits and everything else. Only one place, and that place was Shanghai, China. Nobody really wanted to go there because they had a war there and with the Japanese, and it was very far away. It was a different country we knew very little about, except from the movies. And we heard the weather was terrible and so on and so forth. But that one place, Shanghai, China, helped about 20,000 European Jews find refuge. And I was one of those. And I was very lucky. My family was very fortunate. So we had to say goodbye to all our friends and relatives and everything. And I remember saying goodbye to my grandparents, my mother's parents, who lived nearby. And they had lived in that apartment building for 30, 40 years. My mother grew up there, and her sisters and her brother. And we went over there to say goodbye, and everyone's crying. My sister's crying, I'm crying, my mother's crying, my uncle, my aunt who came with us. We were all trying to make our way down the courtyard, while upstairs on the third floor, my grandparents were waving to us. They couldn't come with us because my grandmother had been ill, so one uncle, one aunt stayed with them and said they will take care of them and they'll come out after us. Guess what? They never came. Couldn't get out. And many years later, I found out that my grandparents were taken to a place called Grebenschikoff and afterwards to Auschwitz, and they were all killed over there. And I found that out for sure from the museum in Washington. So we made our way out there. And all around, the German neighbors who knew our family for years were looking through the curtains. And do you think anybody came out to say goodbye? Why not? Why didn't they come out? Because were they afraid? Were they afraid of their kids? That their kids would tell the leaders of their Hitler Youth that the parents were nice to Jews? Because that's what they did. The German children all had to be in the Hitler Youth, the girls group and the boys group. And they were taught to hate Jews, and they were taught to inform on their parents if the parents were nice to Jews or helped them. So it was a very, very difficult situation. And that was the last time I ever saw my relatives in Berlin. So we got on a train to Italy, and then we got on a ship, a Japanese ship, where we just barely managed to get tickets because the tickets were all sold out. My father went to get tickets for the four of us, and they said, oh, it'll take 6 months before you can have tickets. And you know, we didn't have 6 months because my father had in his pocket a letter from the Gestapo, which is the German secret police. And they said that he has to report to them on the 21st of May, 1939. And we didn't have time to wait for these tickets. So my father went back to the shipping company the next day, put a lot of money in his papers, and said, would you please look at my papers again? And so this shipping agent looks at all his papers and looks at all this nice money, and he says, well, let's see what we can do. And in a few days we had tickets. And that's how it was done. If you could bribe your way out, or somehow manage to get your way out, that's what you did. If you had the money, or if you had some kind of way to do this, that's what you did. So we managed to get tickets, and we got out 2 days before my father's plane to get started. If we hadn't gotten out then, I would not be here today. I can promise you that. I would not be here. Because they would have caught us then. So we got on the ship, and we were on the ship for 4 weeks. I was 9 years old. My sister was 11. And we had a great time. First of all, we didn't have to go to school for a whole month, which wasn't bad at all. So we didn't mind that.